Hello there, welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight I'm excited to share a layout process video with you featuring our Gnomes for Autumn collection and focusing on how to add texture and dimension to a really simple background to end up with a unique and cute layout. So I am going to be using tonight the Autumn Gnome collection, and I happen to just grab the bundle. One of the reasons I grabbed the bundle is it's our biggest discount. So if you're not quite sure exactly what you want to create, but you know you love it all, the bundle is always a great way to go. So I am going to be creating lots and lots of things with this bundle with lots and lots of future videos, but we're going to start with this very first layout here. And in the Gnomes for Autumn bundle, we have this adorable gnome thin cut that creates this little gnome holding the sunflower. Now the photo is actually the exact size of the real gnome once you have it cut out. It also includes 2 additional stamp sets in the bundle. The Gnomes for Autumn card making stamp set that has these great sentiments. We're actually going to use one of those sentiments this evening. And then another adorable Stampin' Thin Cut set that is fall themed. Everything in the blue is a thin cut, and then it also has sentiments that go with it. So it has really cute detailed sunflowers, pumpkins, mushrooms, pie, and fall themes. These cork shapes are also included that have different kinds of leaves that are fall themed. Here's the Gnomes for Autumn 12 by 12 sticker sheet. There are a couple gnome specific stickers, and though I'm going all on gnome myself, they actually lend themselves to just a really cute fall theme. So the Gnomes for Autumn pattern paper and sticker sheet is included, a great stripe, a great crisscross, a wonderful theme-specific gnome paper, and then more of a generic fall busy paper. Love, love, love all the patterns in this, including a really cute fall-themed stripe. The coordinating cardstock for Gnomes for Autumn is also included. Now, I've created this tray filled with goodies. I actually went ahead and did several of the thin cuts from the thin cuts that come right in the Gnomes for Autumn kit. And a lot of times what I like to do, especially if I know I'm going to create a lot with a collection, I will definitely be creating at least 10 pages and probably some cards. So I go ahead and using the coordinating cardstock, and the cardstock that is recommended on the zip strip, I created lots of those stamps and thin cuts that come in the kit. So this is the Gnome for Autumn scrapbooking stamp and thin cut set that I'm showing you now. Great detail on those sunflowers. Love the pumpkins. Those little mushrooms are going to come in handy. In addition, I've also created some of those adorable gnomes. Now, I really wanted to make a variety because I wanted to incorporate those into a lot of my pages. So you can see that when you are finished creating the gnome thin cut, it is exactly the size of the photo on the front of the front photo on the thin cut set. So we have this little girl gnome. You can give her different color hair, different color braids, different color hat. She has a sunflower in her hand, and I'm going to show you how I modified this just a titch to create a boy gnome with a beard. And so you can also trim that flower off. And I actually wanted to create several different outfits. So I coordinated the coordinating cardstock with the pattern, and I actually added some of our new season mix-ins as well because I loved the pattern. So for example, the hat on the way left is a season mix-ins, and the hat on the way right is our season mix-ins. And then I wanted to make a boy and a girl gnome for each set. So I actually found a beard on the cricket. It was either from a Santa Claus or from another gnome, and I just adjusted the size on that beard and then added the beard to that instead, and I made a coordinating set of boy and girl gnomes with each of the patterns that I chose to use. Then from the sunflowers that I actually cut off of the boy gnome, so I wanted the girl gnome to keep the sunflower in her hand, and then I wanted the boy gnome to just be standing on his own. And so I kept those sunflower bits, those extra bits that were trimmed off, because those will make great addition to the pages. So in addition to all the great stamps and thin cuts, I mean, man, this is an amazing set. So much comes with it. I actually found some oversized barrels, some of our logs or tree stumps that are from one of our digital collections. I found some cute little mushrooms, a rake, a little crate, a wooden wagon or wheelbarrow. And I thought these would be great additions. These are just additional Cricut cuts as I'm thinking down the road. So you might be thinking, my goodness, you went to a lot of work for one layout, but I'm actually only using a few pieces on this layout. I'm just prepping for a whole large collection of fun to come. In a previous video, I used these leaves that are actually from this wonderful stamp and thin cut lined leaves, and I did a previous video using parts of this gnome collection, but I love the concept of these oversized leaves with tiny little gnomes in them. So because I wanted the gnomes to look tiny, I wanted to use larger leaves with them so they could be buried in those leaves, but yet I love the adorable little tiny leaves that came in our stamp and thin cut set for Gnome with Autumn, Gnomes for Autumn. And so again, adding that season mix-ins that actually launches on September 1st. So it would be our September-October season mix-ins. So you're going to see some mix-ins that are going to go with our new Christmas line, as well as our next Good Life line that's coming in September. But I thought they lent themselves perfectly to these gnomes. So in my head and on my Cricut, I actually created a little design that I thought that I might love. I love the concept of the little gnomes peeking out from underneath the layout and peeking out from underneath the circle, maybe using some foam tape and popping up an overlay and creating a little circle overlay on the Cricut and having those little gnomes peek out with leaves around them. So this was just my, kind of my original inspiration in wanting to have a super simple background, adding texture with Cricut cuts, with the foam tape of the background, the simple background, some of those textured leaves with some treatments on it. So I started with a 12 by 12 frame, gutted frame, and I used the Busy Gnome pattern and gutted that frame by cutting from 1 inch to 11 inches and rotating, cutting from 1 inch to 11 inches and rotating, and doing that all the way around so that I could have a 10-inch square left over. Then one of my go-tos that you will see me use all the time is a wide stitched frame. Now you can find a wide stitched frame on one of our older Cricut collections, but I've also linked a video up in the description on how you can just make your own in minutes. It's super simple to do, and it makes it really nice because you can use a free shape, your free square and your dashed lines to be able to create that stitched frame. So there's no collections that you need to purchase or anything like that. You can simply make it out of a square. So you can totally check that out. So here was my conceptual idea of having this piece that I made on the Cricut by cutting 4-inch circles out of an 11 let's see. So I actually made the background stitched frame 11 by 11, and then I made the white daisy square 10 by 10, and I cut 2 4-inch circles out of the left side and 1 4-inch circle out of the right side, just using the slicing tool. And if you check out my Cricut tutorial playlist here, I've done tons of short little videos on slicing, and you'll get lots of ideas there, but just simply slicing out the circle. So now I went ahead and I adhered that stitched background frame to my base, to my gutted frame, and then I actually am just showing you the size here, that this is a 10 by 10, and that I'm going to be able to fit that perfectly inside that stitched frame, but I'm going to pop the whole thing up. But before I do, I was thinking there might be a little bit of treatment that we could do to that so it isn't so stark white. But I also wanted to just sort of place my pieces, and that whole big tray in my junk tray, I'm kind of a junk gypsy. I like to find old junk, and that's an old toolbox that I just love to put bits in, and it seems like a lot of work to make all of those bits, but that's what makes it fun for me, to make all kinds of bits that I can draw from and then just kind of go to town and just create without having to stop and make little bits in between. So now I'm using some pattern papers that are 4x4, and I have the crisscross season mix-ins up in the upper left, which is a 4x4. Then I have another one of the brown season mix-ins pattern in the lower left corner there, which is 4x4. And then I have the stripe from the Gnome for Autumn, which is a 4x4. And I'm using an odd size photo, 3.5 by 3.5. If you use like a Picturemate 400, which is what I use, you can make your photos just about any size, and even if it's an odd size, 3.5 by 3.5, but you could also crop down a 4x4 or crop down a 4x6, or you could adjust your photo sizes pretty easily. And my idea was to get the dimension and the texture from some layering, from some Cricut cuts, from some of those Stampin' Thin cuts, and from using the foam tape to get that dimension on the background. So I wanted to do a lot of offsetting of the squares and the photos, and then maybe add some bits to it. So over on the left side then you see the Limeade, which is one of our new colors, the Limeade Crisscross, which is a 4x4. Then you see the pumpkin leaf pattern in the upper right of the left page, which is from our Gnome from Autumn and is also a 4x4. And I thought it might be fun to sort of use the lime, because lime is not used everywhere, to use the Limeade on the lower left, on the left page, and then on the upper right Gnome in the right page to sort of balance out those colors there. And then maybe use that little boy gnome in the upper left. And I'm not popping up my pieces yet. I just kind of want to get the placement and make sure that I'm happy. And I absolutely love to use hardly anything complicated in the back. Like, my background is so simple. You've got your 12 by 12 gutted frame, you've got your 11 by 11 stitched Cricut frame, you've got your circle frame, which is 10 by 10, and only 4 by 4 pieces of pattern paper. And I love that you can use them in a hodgepodge fashion and add a lot of little thin cut elements, sticker elements, and Cricut cut elements. And so now I can just draw from some of those little pieces that I've already created and see what I can come up with. I love this little mushroom, and because there is some scarlet in that pattern paper stripe, I like the idea of bringing that scarlet mushroom in, and then it also ties in with our little gnomies, right? And bringing in these leaves. So all of these leaves were created out of the coordinating cardstock pieces or out of the Gnome for Autumn pattern paper. And I can describe those to you, but essentially I did tone-on-tone stamping. So like the piece that I have in my hand now is I believe it's a shortbread piece. And so I stamped it in shortbread. On the espresso leaf up there that I'm also touching now, I stamped in espresso. On the limeade, there's a few limeade. I don't think I used one in this particular layout. I stamped in limeade. If I had a leaf in pumpkin, I stamped it in pumpkin, and so on and so on. So I do believe I use a jade leaf. That's our new color, jade. And then I also use a toffee leaf. So I stamped the toffee in toffee and the jade in jade. And I just loved using our new ink colors. And then what I did is I rubbed a little bit of golden Rod Stickles over the tops of those leaves. I did ink the edges of those leaves in some toffee ink to just give them a little bit of a dirty look, like a pile of leaves. But I loved that golden texture in there. I also took the sticky off of the back of the little round sunflower sticker and added that to the right page just for another rounded element. So we have the round circles and then we have all the squares. I did try to use some of the tiny leaves because I thought that might be really cute. And then I ended up not actually liking that look. And so I thought I'm going to reserve the tiny leaves for the next layout. I have some ideas up my sleeve for the next 3 or 4 layouts. And so using the gnomes for autumn. And so I thought I would kind of reserve those. And we do have some really super cute cork shapes that come right in this kit. So I think I'll probably add more texture with the cork. So the cork is giving us another texture. The golden Rod Stickles glitter glue is giving us a little bit of texture and an added element. The popping up is giving us another dimension. I have the thin cuts that have dimension in them because I have added foam tape between the layers. So when I created the sunflower portion of the gnome, I actually created it by cutting an additional sunflower. So the bottom sunflower is in Sundance. The top sunflower is in pumpkin. And then the center of the sunflower is in espresso, and the stem of the sunflower is in jade. And so I just popped up the center of the sunflower. I kind of toggled the Sundance sunflower and the pumpkin sunflower so that it looked like a layered sunflower. I do love the idea of adding a little bit of ink around those circles so they're not just so, they seem so sharp, and so they're not just so stark and sharp. And so I tried a little Sundance, I tried a little toffee, and I tried a little pumpkin. And initially I was like, pumpkin is going to be way too dark and it's going to be too much tone on tone, but I ended up loving that softness, using maybe a light hand with a little bit of light pumpkin around the edges of the circles from that Cricut cut. And then for the gnomies themselves, I used a little ballerina ink around their little faces and their nose and their hands. And I actually cut their faces in shortbread. And then I just randomly chose different color hair. So I did a little bit of blonde hair with some of our oh goodness, let me think, honey butter. And then I did brown hair with espresso, and then I used linen for the beards. And then I actually did, I think I did a redhead, a little Gnome, not on this layout, but I think I made a redhead in honor of my mother. And I did the braids in, I believe, pumpkin. Yeah, so here you see me just, I pulled off the pieces and sort of layered them to the left and to the right in the order that we just worked out, so we won't have to go through that again. And then put my all-purpose mat down and added that pumpkin, a little bit of pumpkin inking to the edges of those circles. And then off camera, I did the same thing to the other circle piece that I had created. And I just love that glow. It's just enough. It's not going to show a ton, but it's just enough to take that really strong edge away. Now I thought, because of the gold glitter, golden Rod Stickles on the leaves, I thought it might be nice to use a little bit of gold shimmer trim, or gold shimmer brush, excuse me, and do just a little bit of splattering just on the upper and lower edges of those circles, just to add a little bit of interest. There's going to be a lot of bits and pieces in there, so not a lot of that is going to show, but way up in the corner will, and kind of down on the lower edge of the circle will. And so I really love, it's hard to see on camera to really fully appreciate, but it's super pretty. Just a nice little gentle speckle to add a little more texture on there to just make that fun. So now we're just kind of putting little bitty layers that are super simple, little bit of inking, a little bit of splatter. We're going to add a little cork shapes. We've got some layers with some foam tape, and we'll probably add some of those golden Rod Stickles since we've used them already and we already have them out for this series. We'll probably use a few of those on the base pages as gems as well. Okay, I'm super happy with that. Now I'm super excited. We are almost to the fun stuff where we just get to start decorating and layering this all together. So I've actually put the foam tape on my pieces to raise them up. I'm not going to take the backing off of the foam tape just yet because I want to get my layers in place. Mostly the layers and the pieces that are going to go underneath, so that if I need to put those underneath and then put the overlay over the top, I can get those in place. So we're just going to bring those bits back into place. Now, one of the reasons you're not seeing photos on my layouts today is because I have so many different photos that I'm going to be able to use. Fall is my thing. So whether you have anything gnome related or not, it's just a really cute fall layout. But we have sunflower crops and corn crops and sometimes wheat crops, and we do hay bales, and I typically take the grandkids to pumpkin patches in the fall. We have an old McDonald's farm that is actually, it's in the city, which is funny. We come from the country to go to the city to go to old McDonald's farm, and they have all of these different photo ops that are so cute, old trucks, and the kids get to play in a big bin of corn, and they have goats and all different kinds of animals that you get to feed. So we typically do that with the grandkids each year. We have each of the grandkids, it seems like I always get leaf photos. I get beginning of the school year photos. I get so many things that would work for these layouts. And so I haven't decided. I wanted to finish at least 5 layouts of this theme before I decide what I'm going to use, because sometimes I like to do a series where all of my photos are a theme with the entire series of layouts. And then sometimes I like to use each theme. Oh, here's our 10 o'clock whistle. Oh gosh, of course, when you're recording. So I'm going to wait, but I promised my paper crafters, so I do a workshop, a Simply Scrappin' workshop for every main line in our catalog, and I do a Sparkle and Shine workshop for every main catalog line. And so my Simply Scrappin' workshops are designed to be super simple. They're very pattern oriented. There's not a lot of added extra. My guarantee is that it's a lower price point and that it uses a very simple supply list with no Cricut cuts needed, no added equipment, no thin cuts, no stamping needed. And then I do a sparkle and shine version, which is all the things that I want to add. It typically has Cricut. It does always have Cricut cuts. If it says sparkle and shine on it, I always add Cricut cuts. And probably every third or fourth time I'll add a thin cut and maybe stamping. And then I'll add other things with like the techniques that you're seeing tonight. I might add some inking. I might do some things with some gel pen. So while I'm talking here, you see that I've just decided to stick with the larger leaves, and I actually removed the mushroom that I was originally going to use over there, and I'm just kind of pointing out on each leaf the technique that I used on each of those leaves that I've already described in terms of inking and tone on tone. I think that and then also the pink that I added to the gnome faces and actually made them look like so that their cheeks and their noses were a little rosy. So I decided to move this little mushroom down because there's some scarlet in the striped pattern there, and it kind of draws that scarlet down. So adding this little sticker from the sticker sheet here, and I'm getting super happy with it overall. I do want to add these little cork shapes for more texture. So I promised texture, so we've actually added a lot of texture, but we're going to add a little bit more with these cork shapes. So if you were familiar with our cork shapes that we had a couple years ago, they were super hard to get the adhesive off of, and these are so easy. I love them. In fact, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to use these, and then when I got them, I'm like, I love them because they are so sturdy, much more sturdy. Don't get me wrong, they will tear, it's cork, but they're so much sturdier if you just gently pull them off of the sheet. They stay all together, they don't crumble, and the adhesive backing comes off and it stays in place. There's some little bits inside these cork leaves, and I actually am going to save that. I know I'm weird, but I think I could probably use that on the interior of one of those small leaves, just as a little branch or as some little texture there. I love that. That's so much better than the miniature leaves. You're getting a little bit of glare from the golden Rod Stickles. It just kind of looks blobby because of the glare from the camera, but I promise that golden rod looks really beautiful on those leaves. And then adding a few of those little maple leaves around and using those as embellishments. I think I'll add a little bit more of the golden Rod Stickles to make them look like gems in different spots, and then maybe a few little paper pieces. But anyway, so I explained my Simply Scrappin' and my Sparkle and Shine workshops to you, but I promised my paper crafters, they really, really, really wanted me to do something with Gnomes for Autumn. They wanted me to do a full workshop with a full workshop guide, but I get so busy in the fall, and I've been behind lately as it is, and I don't want to cheat anyone by not being able to get the main lines done. I have to be realistic. And so I really promised them that I would actually create just as many layouts with Gnomes for Autumn as what you would create in a full workshop. And I'd give them a little cheat sheet for the supply list and do a process video on each one of those layouts. So that means all of you out there in YouTube land will get to see every single one of my Gnome for Autumn layouts as I complete them in a process video. And then I just promised my paper crafters that I would only use the materials that I showed tonight unless it's additional cardstock. And so using that Gnomes for Autumn workshop bundle and the lined leaves and the golden Rod Stickles there, and then all of those pieces, including the season mix-ins. And so using that core supply list and making all of my Gnomes for Autumn's goodies, I'm kind of hoping a few little cards as well. We've got all of these bits and pieces, and they're so fun. So there I just added about, I think it was about a 3-inch little torn strip of paper up there. Those other strips are 1/2 inch. And I believe I did those 1/2 inch by 4, the 2 little strips that are within the layout, the striped pieces, and then the one up above is 1/2 inch by 3. Added that little sticker to the top of that just to kind of have a little filler up at the upper left there. And now I'm just coming back in with those golden Rod Stickles and making dots. The thing that you have to remember about the stickles is they do take time to dry. So don't lay anything on top of them until tomorrow. And I'm getting happy with it. I love it. I hope you love it. I thought it was so playful and fun, and it's going to be so adorable for all those fall photos. And I hope you will pull your Gnomes for Autumn out. And I completely forgot. I added So Very Blessed a stamp to the top of that tag. I must have been talking. So the tag is from the sticker sheet, and I just stamped in intense black, So Very Blessed. I love it. Happy scrapping, everyone. Hey, hit the subscribe and the like button and shoot me a comment. It really goes a long way on YouTube. I hope you had fun. Happy scrapping, everyone. Bye-bye.